Imagine a text so powerful, so filled with knowledge, that religious leaders across centuries actively tried to bury it. This isn't some coded message on a forgotten scroll. It's a book that once held a central place in the understanding of the divine, only to be systematically excised. It tells a story so disturbing, so contrary to later interpretations, that its very existence threatened established doctrines. This book doesn't just offer an alternative view, it rips open the fabric of what many believed about creation, sin, and the nature of evil. For millennia, this text was considered lost, a ghost in the vast libraries of history, whispered about but rarely seen. Its suppression wasn't an accident, it was a deliberate act of theological censorship, an effort to control a narrative that challenged everything. The very act of its re-emergence, centuries later, sends shivers down the spines of those who understand the true implications. It's a book that refused to stay buried, a testament to truths some simply couldn't allow to surface. The forbidden knowledge contained within its pages reveals a radically different prehistory, one populated by beings and events that defy our modern understanding. This wasn't merely a debate over rituals or interpretations, it was a fundamental clash over the very origins of humanity's spiritual journey. The sheer effort to erase it speaks volumes about the power it once held. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's get started. The world before the Great Flood, as depicted in this forbidden text, was not a serene garden. It was a place teeming with horrors and unnatural beings, a landscape far removed from the idyllic imagery often taught. This antediluvian era was a crucible of chaos, where the boundaries between the divine and the profane were shockingly blurred. The scriptures we often read hint at a world that had become corrupt and full of violence, but they barely scratch the surface of the terrifying reality this other book describes. It paints a picture of hybrid creatures, monstrous giants, and widespread wickedness that wasn't just human in origin. The earth itself groaned under the weight of this defilement, a primal scream echoing through the heavens. This wasn't just metaphorical evil, it was a physical manifestation of perversion that stained the very essence of creation. The commonly held narrative of a simple, moral downfall feels almost quaint in comparison to the sheer depravity detailed here. This forbidden account suggests an external, overwhelming force that actively plunged humanity into an abyss of unimaginable sin. It wasn't merely human temptation, but a systematic hijacking of the divine order. The conventional story often undersells the severity of the problem that necessitated such a cataclysmic event as a global flood. This harrowing portrayal of an earth before the flood immediately begs the question: who were these external forces, and what forbidden pact did they make to unleash such chaos? At the heart of this ancient corruption were beings identified as the Watchers, a group of celestial entities whose purpose was to observe, not to intervene. Yet they did intervene, spectacularly and disastrously. These Watchers, described as angels, descended from their heavenly abode not with divine blessings, but with intentions that would forever alter human history. Their descent wasn't an act of rebellion against God, but a transgression of a different, more intimate kind. They saw the daughters of men, as the cryptic lines in Genesis briefly mention, and they found them beautiful. But this wasn't love. It was lust, a forbidden desire that ignited a catastrophic chain of events. Their pact, a solemn oath sworn upon Mount Hermon, sealed their fate and the fate of humanity. They agreed to act together, to abandon their spiritual duties for carnal gratification, and to teach humanity forbidden knowledge. This pact wasn't just a private sin, it was a monumental betrayal of cosmic order. The Watchers weren't just falling from grace, they were actively pulling humanity down with them, introducing concepts and practices that were never meant for mortal minds. Their knowledge wasn't enlightenment, it was contagion. This shocking revelation of angelic intervention and a forbidden pact leads us directly to understanding the specific warnings that Enoch attempted to deliver before the world changed forever. Enoch, a figure barely mentioned in traditional scripture, emerges as a central prophet in this suppressed narrative. He was the one who walked with God, who was perhaps too close to the divine plan to ignore its impending unraveling. His warnings weren't abstract prophecies of future events. They were urgent, direct condemnations of the Watcher's actions and precise predictions of the consequences. He saw the impending doom with clarity, a vision granted to him by the very heavens the Watchers had deserted. His prophetic voice wasn't confined to vague pronouncements. He meticulously detailed the specific ways the Watchers were corrupting humanity. He spoke of forbidden arts, of sorcery, of astrology, and of the manufacturing of weapons, knowledge that transformed human society into a violent, self-destructive force. These weren't mere moral failings. They were deliberate instigations of evil taught to humanity by their celestial betrayers. Enoch's messages were not heeded, or perhaps they were actively suppressed even in his own time. His role was to be a cosmic messenger, a voice crying out against the tide of corruption, explaining exactly what was going wrong and why. He understood the profound danger of creatures that blurred the lines between divine and mortal. His warnings laid bare the origins of the giants and the true nature of their monstrosity, which sets the stage for unraveling the terrifying significance of the dreams of these colossal beings. The Watcher's forbidden union with human women produced offspring, the Nephilim, often translated as giants. These aren't just tall men, they are monstrous beings whose existence is a fundamental perversion of the natural order. But what truly sets them apart, and what this forgotten text reveals, are their disturbing dreams. These weren't just nightmares, they were prophetic visions, reflections of their corrupted nature and the inevitable judgment awaiting them. The giants, born of both heavenly and earthly lineage, possessed a unique, tortured consciousness. Their dreams were filled with visions of destruction, of blood, and of an impending flood that would wipe them from the face of the earth. These visions were a source of profound torment, a constant reminder of their unnatural origins and their doomed existence. They understood, through their nightmares, the horror of what they had become. These dreams were not just personal anxieties, they were divine pronouncements, echoing the pronouncements of Enoch himself. The nightmares of the giants served as a chilling confirmation of the cosmic imbalance their very presence created. They foreshadowed the coming cleansing, revealing that even these colossal beings experienced fear and a terrifying awareness of their impending annihilation. Understanding these nightmare visions of the giants makes us wonder why such crucial pieces of this narrative were deliberately removed from religious texts, leading to the question of why religious authorities actively erased it. The systematic erasure of this text by religious authorities wasn't arbitrary. It was a strategic decision driven by theological and political necessity. The book's unflinching portrayal of angelic corruption and the direct rebellion of celestial beings presented a profound problem for emerging doctrines. If angels could fall so completely and corrupt humanity so thoroughly, what did that say about divine control? It complicated the narrative of simple human free will and responsibility. Furthermore, the idea of angels directly intervening in human procreation and teaching forbidden knowledge challenged the established theological hierarchy. It brought into question the nature of sin itself, suggesting an external, powerful instigator beyond simple temptation. This narrative was too messy, too complex, and too challenging to control. It offered explanations for evil that religious leaders found inconvenient to integrate into a tidy, centralized faith. To accept this book meant redefining core beliefs about creation, sin, and the scope of divine judgment. It risked undermining the very authority these religious institutions were trying to establish. Simplicity and a clear chain of command were paramount for religious and societal control. The suppression ensured a more manageable, less controversial origin story for evil, but it also obscured a vital understanding of the cosmic battle being fought, which brings us to the very foundation of this obscured knowledge. The fallen cosmology. The erasure of the Book of Enoch wasn't just about deleting a few controversial passages, it was about dismantling an entire cosmological framework. This ancient text presented a fallen cosmology, a description of the universe where specific celestial entities directly defied divine law, altering the very fabric of existence. It paints a universe where some heavenly beings are not merely benevolent messengers, but active agents of destruction and corruption. This fallen cosmology fundamentally changed the understanding of good and evil. Evil wasn't just a human failing or a temptation, it was a pervasive, spiritual pollution originating from a celestial source. It introduced a cosmic war where the battle lines were drawn between divine order and angelic transgression, with humanity caught in the middle. This wasn't merely about personal sin, it was about an entire system gone awry, initiated by powerful spiritual beings. Such a worldview, if widely accepted, would have transformed religious practice and understanding. It would have necessitated a different approach to salvation and a deeper awareness of spiritual warfare. This cosmology offered a detailed, disturbing origin story for the pervasive evil in the world, far beyond the vague explanations in conventional scripture. This complex cosmic system, however, didn't develop in a vacuum, which raises crucial questions about its surprising connections to ancient Mesopotamia. The echoes of the Book of Enoch's narratives reverberate unexpectedly through earlier, independent traditions, particularly those from ancient Mesopotamia. This isn't coincidence. It's a profound link that suggests a shared, primeval understanding of certain cosmic events before they were filtered through later religious lenses. The themes of divine beings intermingling with humanity, the creation of giants, and catastrophic floods are not unique to this forbidden text. Mesopotamian myths, like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Atrahasis epic, contain striking parallels. They speak of beings descended from the heavens, influencing earthly affairs and creating a lineage of powerful, often destructive figures. The universal experience of a great flood is also a central motif in these very ancient accounts, predating many biblical narratives. This suggests a common, perhaps highly distorted, memory of a pre-cataclysmic world. The connections are too strong to be dismissed as mere literary parallels. They hint at a foundational period when humanity grappled with the same questions about origins, divine intervention, and existential threats. The Book of Enoch provides a unique lens through which to re-examine these ancient stories, revealing a deeper, more intertwined history than often acknowledged. It is here, in these Mesopotamian connections, that we find a startling reinterpretation of figures like Gilgamesh, prompting us to ask why he was recast as a giant. Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk and hero of the oldest surviving epic poem, was initially a demigod, 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. Yet, in the shadow of this forbidden cosmology, his figure takes on a new, darker significance, almost as if he was recast to fit a particular narrative. He was not merely powerful, he became emblematic of the giants from the Book of Enoch, a colossal being whose immense strength and tyrannical rule mirrored the Nephilim. The connection isn't just about his stature, but his extraordinary nature, his defiance, and his eventual confrontation with the divine-infused wilderness. His story, with its themes of immense power, hubris, and a quest for immortality, could easily be interpreted as a human echo of the Watcher's offspring. The societal fear and awe he inspired in his own people could be seen through the same lens as the fear the Nephilim inspired. By recasting Gilgamesh as a giant in this narrative context, the forbidden text subtly underlines the pervasive nature of this corrupted lineage. It suggests that the legacy of these extraordinary beings wasn't confined to a specific period, but permeated subsequent mythologies, reshaping how even legendary heroes were perceived. He became a cultural memory, a distorted reflection of the unnatural. This reinterpretation of ancient heroes as giants naturally leads us to consider the crucial role of violence in these forbidden texts. The forbidden texts, particularly the Book of Enoch, are saturated with a raw, visceral understanding of violence. This isn't just about human aggression, it's about the very genesis of conflict, its escalation, and its pervasive reach. The Watchers didn't just teach humanity agricultural techniques, they taught them how to forge weapons, how to wage war, and how to execute with lethal efficiency. This was the dark side of knowledge. The violence described here is not a simple consequence of human nature. It's a direct, engineered outcome of celestial intervention. The giants, born of this illicit union, weren't just physically huge. They were creatures of immense destructive power, literally devouring the resources of the earth and turning upon humanity itself. Their existence was intrinsically violent, a scourge upon the land. This narrative forces a re-evaluation of violence as a spiritual contagion, a corruption introduced from without, rather than solely an intrinsic human flaw. It paints a picture of a world drowning in bloodshed, a direct result of forbidden knowledge and unnatural unions. The scale of this violence is cosmic, necessitating a complete reset. This profound emphasis on the origins and consequences of violence inevitably draws our attention to another striking element of these texts: the symbolism of hybrid creatures. The concept of hybrid creatures, so central to these forbidden texts, carries profound symbolism that goes far beyond mere biological anomaly. These beings, like the Nephilim, are not just physical mixtures. They represent a spiritual perversion, a blurring of boundaries that should never have been crossed. They are living metaphors for the corruption of divine order and the catastrophic consequences of forbidden unions. These hybrids stand as stark warnings against tampering with creation, against mixing what is sacred with what is profane. Their very existence is a testament to the Watchers' transgression, a visible manifestation of their sin. They embody the chaos that erupts when natural and divine laws are defied, reflecting a world turned upside down. They are a tangible scar on the face of creation. Beyond the giants, the texts hint at other, more subtle forms of hybridity, the mixing of pure knowledge with defiling practices, the merging of spiritual truth with manipulative magic. This symbolism extends beyond physical beings to encompass the very spiritual state of humanity, which became a hybrid of divine potential and demonic influence. The hybrids are the living record of a cosmic mistake. This pervasive symbolism naturally leads us to ponder how much of this deeper meaning was understood and deliberately suppressed by those in power, specifically what the Church Fathers knew. The early Church Fathers, the foundational thinkers of Christian theology, were intimately familiar with the Book of Enoch. They didn't just know of it, many frequently cited it, quoting passages and integrating its narratives into their understanding of Genesis, angels, and the origins of evil. Figures like Tertullian, Clement of Alexandria, and Origen engaged with this text, sometimes even holding it in high regard. They understood its significance, its unique contributions to explaining elements that the canonical scriptures only hinted at. Yet despite this initial acceptance, there was a gradual, deliberate shift away from it. The reasons were complex: its challenge to emerging doctrines of original sin, its detailed account of demonic origins, and its potential to introduce theological complexities that were hard to manage in a unifying faith. The Church Fathers wrestled with its implications, recognizing its power, but ultimately deciding it presented too many difficulties for a nascent, rapidly expanding religion. Their knowledge was profound, not born of ignorance, but of careful consideration and eventual rejection. They understood the cosmological implications, the narrative power, and the historical weight of the book. Their decision to deem it apocryphal was not light. It was a calculated move to shape the theological landscape for centuries to come. They chose unity and clarity over complex, challenging truths. This intentional sidelining by the Church Fathers underscores the sheer historical impact and the fascinating evolution of Enochian literature. Enochian literature isn't just about one book. It's a genre, a body of interconnected texts attributed to the antediluvian prophet Enoch that once held immense sway. These writings, including the various books of Enoch, Ethiopic, Slavonic, Hebrew, provided a rich, detailed backstory to key biblical events that mainstream scriptures largely omitted. They offered explanations for the origins of evil, the nature of angels, and the intricate workings of the cosmos, building a comprehensive, if challenging, theological framework. This body of work captivated ancient Jewish and early Christian thinkers, filling gaps in their understanding of the divine narrative. It provided context for passages in Genesis that seemed obscure or incomplete, transforming cryptic verses into parts of a sweeping cosmic drama. The influence of Enochian literature can be seen filtering into concepts like the binding of fallen angels and the description of the underworld, subtly shaping religious thought even where it was later officially rejected. The scope of this literature was vast, touching on astronomy, angelology, eschatology, and ethics, creating a holistic worldview that many found compelling. It laid out a complex hierarchy of spiritual beings and detailed the mechanics of divine judgment, offering a unique perspective on creation and destruction. The sheer depth of these writings is astounding, providing a complex tapestry of knowledge that was both revered and feared. The power and depth of these ancient texts now begs the critical question of why modern scholars are interested in them again after centuries of dismissal. After centuries of suppression and marginalization, modern scholars are rediscovering the profound significance of Enochian literature. This renewed interest isn't driven by theological dogma, but by historical, linguistic, and comparative religious research. The discovery of multiple fragments among the Dead Sea Scrolls, particularly in Qumran, confirmed its widespread acceptance among certain Jewish sects during the Second Temple period. This archaeological evidence proved it wasn't an obscure cultic text, but a mainstream component of some ancient Jewish thought. Scholars are recognizing that these texts provide invaluable insights into the diverse religious landscape of ancient Judaism and early Christianity. They offer a window into the rich intellectual and spiritual ferment that predated the formal canonization of the Bible. Understanding the religious context of the time is incomplete without engaging with works like the Book of Enoch. It helps to explain nuances in later canonical writings and sheds light on what spiritual questions people were asking. Furthermore, its unique cosmology and demonology offer a fresh perspective on the origins of evil and the nature of the divine, challenging simplistic interpretations that have dominated for millennia. It forces scholars to reconsider the evolutionary path of religious ideas. The complexity and detailed narratives provide a rich resource for understanding ancient thought patterns. This resurgent scholarly interest is forcing us to confront deeper truths, making us ask what this profound rediscovery truly means about divine power. The re-evaluation of Enochian literature profoundly reshapes our understanding of divine power itself. It suggests that divine power is not always an omnipotent, perfectly controlled force that operates without dissent or accidental consequences. Instead, it presents a more dynamic, perhaps even chaotic, relationship between the divine and creation, where celestial beings can exercise agency that defies the Creator's initial intent. This complicates the traditional view of an all-controlling, unchallengeable deity. This forbidden text implies that divine power, while ultimate, can be challenged from within its own ranks, leading to cosmic disruption and profound suffering for humanity. It shows a God who, while just, must sometimes respond to the catastrophic choices made by powerful subordinates, leading to cataclysmic events like the flood. It also highlights a divine justice that allows for profound error and a long, drawn-out battle against spiritual corruption. This understanding of divine power is less about absolute, iron-fisted control and more about a complex system of order, free will, and inevitable consequence, even for celestial beings. It portrays a divine plan that can be severely impacted by unforeseen rebellion and the active interference of powerful, intelligent beings who choose deviance. This is a universe far more intricate and perilous than many have been led to believe. This rich, re-emerging understanding of divine power only hints at the vastness of the cosmos, leaving us with the powerful realization that the story is still very much left untold. Despite the diligent efforts of scholars and the tantalizing glimpses offered by rediscovered texts, the complete story of this forbidden history remains largely untold. The fragments we have, the censored narratives, and the suppressed traditions only hint at a grander, more intricate cosmic drama that played out across millennia. There are still layers of meaning, unspoken connections, and deliberate obscurations that await discovery. The full implications of the Watcher's fall, the extent of their technologies, the precise nature of the giants, and the true impact these events had on human development before the flood are still being pieced together. We are only scratching the surface of a history that fundamentally reshapes our understanding of origins, destiny, and the ongoing spiritual struggle. There are depths yet to be plumbed, secrets yet to be unveiled from the shadows of time. This untold story challenges us to question accepted narratives, to look beyond surface explanations, and to embrace a more complex, perhaps unsettling, truth about our ancient past. It demands a willingness to engage with what was deliberately hidden and to reconsider what we think we know about everything. The most profound revelations may still be whispered in forgotten tongues. Make sure to subscribe for more religious videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.